Let me shift here, and I just want to talk a little bit about silence. Silence, my sisters and brothers, has many dimensions. There is a sacred silence, which is that silence out of which creative contemplation grows. It's a meditation on the word and the will of God. It's the silence out of which we meditate and get closer to God. It's the silence in which fervent prayer is born. There is a sacred silence. But then there's a seething silence that comes when you are quiet externally, but you've got a storm going on the inside. The late Dr. Howard Thurman called that a noisy quietness. But then finally, and here's the silence I want to get to, there is a sinful silence. And Adam's silence falls into this category because a sinful silence is a silence that comes over you when you ought to say something, but you don't say nothing at all. It is that silence that creeps in when you ought to speak up for God, but you sit there acting like you don't know what God said. My sisters and brothers, I fear that Adam was not only silent on that fateful day in the garden when a serpent showed up, but Adam has remained silent through the centuries. When Africans were captured and taken from their homeland, packed in the hulls of ships, sold on auction blocks, beat and killed and misused and kept in shadow slavery, Adam was silent. When Jews were persecuted, deported, and murdered by Nazis, Adam was silent. When Native Americans were slaughtered in the acts of genocide so their land could be taken from them, Adam was silent. When our ancestors were lynched and called boy and girl, even though they were full grown, when they were denied employment and equal access to resources, Adam was silent. And today, far too often, when our boys are shooting and killing each other on the streets, and our girls suffer from low self-esteem and give birth to children whose daddies won't stay around to take care of them, Adam is still silent. Sisters and brothers, there is a sinful silence among us when injustice is raging and we remain quiet. When people are aching, when people are hurting, when babies are crying and dying of hunger and not having enough love from insufficient care, and we remain silent, that is a sinful silence. When the church looks and sees what's going on in its communities, and not just in its communities, but what's going on right there in the household of faith, and we sit there and act like we don't know what's going on, that is a sinful silence. And let me suggest that there's a time when silence is sinful. And here in the text, we see a snake talking to Adam's wife. Adam remains silent. Adam should have said something. My sisters and brothers, the nation is waiting for somebody to say something. Go on, touch your neighbor and tell him you ought to say something. You see them boys on the corner, you ought to say something. You see what's happening with those sisters. I'm not talking about Pookie and Ray Ray and them. I'm talking about the saints' children. Y'all ain't gonna help me in here today. You ought to say something. The classroom is waiting for somebody to say something. Youth violence is waiting for somebody to say something. Every community, every city, every town, every home, every boy, every girl, every family is waiting for the church to break the silence. And if we don't break the silence, let me tell you what's going to happen. If we don't break the silence, we end up embracing the appeals of the serpent. What are the appeals of the serpent? Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. You've got a responsibility to go back to Lodabar. Your work's not done just because you made it to the palace. Oh, bless the name of the Lord. But you've got a responsibility to help somebody else make it across. Thank you, Jesus. Don't pull up the ladder because you climbed to the top. Don't blow up the bridge because you made your way across. Thank you, Jesus. But reach your hand back down the ladder and pull somebody else up out of Lodabar. Thank you, Jesus. Somebody gotta tell themselves it's all right if you got it now. Just hold it for me. I'll be there to get it after a while. Oh, bless the name of the Lord. Thank you, Jesus. You got to make up in your mind that what God has for me, it is for me. I might not have it right now. I may not get it next week. You might try to stop me from getting it. But if God said it's mine, I want you to know after a while, I'm going to get what belongs to me. Sometimes God got to strip what you got so you don't depend on yourself. He got to take away from you so you understand how to depend on El Shaddai. Come on in there. Thank you, Jesus. Our young people are dying. Cracked out. Suicide. Homicide. They'll kill you at the drop of a dime. Our jails are full. Yet the crime still runs rampant. 90.7 WTCC. Good morning and welcome to the Spoken Word. I'm your host, Bishop Talbert Swan II, and as usual, we'll be telling it like it is through cultural idioms and nuances that shape the order, ethos, and chaos of the African American existence. Words have their own vitality. They shape their own consciousness and create their own context for interpreting social and spiritual reality. The spoken word contains the power to reshape the landscape of society. 4 minutes past the hour of 9 a.m. I want to thank Mr. Kenneth Barnett for bringing us up into the 9 o'clock hour with the promise. You can hear the promise every Monday morning from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., bringing you the best
in gospel music. Good way to start out your Monday morning. A great way to start out your week. And it's been another interesting week, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about in this first hour here on WTCC. I'm going to tell you how Democrats have failed black voters. I know there are people getting nervous, and there are people getting upset. Bishop, you shouldn't do this. We can't vote for those Republicans. I'm not suggesting that you should. See, what you have to understand is holding Democrats accountable does not equal supporting Republicans. And see, that's been their strategy the whole time, that we can do whatever we want when it comes to black voters who support us because they're not going to vote Republican. And anybody in the black community who has the audacity to criticize the Democrats is going to get ostracized by their own community, and they're going to be looked at as a traitor, as someone who's telling them to vote for Republicans. That's not the case. You cannot vote for Republicans and not support them and hold Democrats accountable at the same time. And if you don't know how they failed you, how do you hold them accountable? You know, it's like black folks continue to be forced to choose between, you know, a knife wound and a gunshot wound. You know, the Republicans are going to shoot you and kill you on the spot, and Democrats are going to stab you in the back with the knife and kill you slowly. You're going to die either way. And I'm going to give you a historical perspective and bring it up to modern times, because this current administration is not doing what President Biden promised they were going to do for African Americans in these divided states of America. All right. 413-221. I'm sorry, wrong number. 413-337-1867. 413-337-1867. That's right, accountability. I see you there on Instagram. All of my listeners here on WTCC in the Pioneer Valley, welcome. Tell a friend, tell somebody the Bishop is on the air. Tell them to tune in to 90.7 FM. Those of you who are watching us on our social media platforms, do me a favor. I need you to like. I need you to share. I need you, to do all of that stuff. Like, share, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Please, ma'am, please rep your city, rep your town. Let me know where you're chiming in from. Would love to shout you out wherever you're chiming in from. So put that in the comments section. Let me know you're from Alabama, you're from Chi-Town, you're from wherever you're coming from Springfield. Rep your city, rep your town. Do that for me right now. We're going to take a short break. We're going to be right back. Spread the word. Tell them the Bishop is on there. I'm in the Twitter Spaces. I'm live on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Getting ready to go live in my Facebook audio space as well. I'm doing that right now. There we go. So we're live on audio in the Facebook space, in Twitter Spaces. We got Instagram popping off. We got YouTube popping off. We got everything popping off. And we're live on WTCC. Tell somebody. Get with it. Bishop about to go deep. Y'all put on some scuba gear. Okay? We about to go there. We need to have this conversation. We can't just keep beating around the bush and acting like it ain't what it is, because it is what it is. Uncle Remus said, always be what you is, because when you ain't what you is what you ain't. We'll be right back. Don't go nowhere.
Being in the road would be the end of the road if you refuse to change.
Reach a little higher, reach a
little higher. Dig a little deeper. Dig a little deeper. Go a little further. Go a little further. Come on, come on, come on. Reach a little higher. Come on, yeah. Dig a little deeper. Dig a little deeper. Go a little further. Go a little further. Come on, but don't stop. The essence of life is growth, but the essence of growth is change. The being in the road will be the end of the road if you refuse to change. Your life will never change until you get disgusted with where you are. Whatever you don't hate is what you tolerate. You must learn from the past, plan for the future, and live for today. For it is your daily routine that determines your success or failure in life. It's the choices that you have made up until this point that will determine the rest of your life. So break the cycle that doing enough is simply good enough. You only get out what you put in, so don't settle for the crumbs so you can have a whole loaf. So push yourself, push beyond your limitations. Come on. Reach a little higher. Reach a little higher. Dig a little deeper. Dig a little deeper. Go a little further. Don't stop. Don't stop. Come on. Reach a little higher. Reach a little higher. Dig a little deeper. Dig a little deeper. Go a little further. Go a little further. Don't stop. Don't stop. Don't stop. Don't stop. So you gotta break the routine of trying to beat the system. Manipulators will always try to bypass the process for the quick progress. There are no shortcuts to success. There are no elevators to the top. You gotta take it one step at a time. You gotta break the routine of allowing others to get into your head and control who you are and where you're going. You see, when you're about the positive, you're gonna always have haters. But don't let your haters push you down, let your haters push you forward to the next level. So when people show you who they really are, don't perceive them to be something else that they're not. See, a zebra does not change his stripes. So you gotta keep pushing yourself to the next level. Yeah, there you go. Come on. A little deeper. Come on. Yeah. Go a little further. Go a little further. Come on. Don't stop. Come on. Yeah. Reach a little higher. Reach a little higher. Dig a little deeper. Dig a little deeper. Go a little further. Go a little further. Come on. Come on. Come on. You gotta understand the greatness is the nature that you were born out of. You'll never discover your greatness without hard work and dedication. Greatness is more about who you are and what's self. And greatness will always attract greatness. Show me your friends and I'll show you the future. You just a step away. You're just a step away. You're just a step away. Don't ever give up. Come on. You're just a step away. You're almost there. Come on. You gotta push yourself beyond your limitations. You see, there's no mountain too high, no valley too low. You can go where you want to go. It's all in the power of your imagination. If you can see the invisible, you can do the impossible. So stretch yourself. Take yourself to the next level. Come on. Come on. Reach a little higher. Dig a little deeper. Go a little further. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Reach a little higher. Dig a little deeper. Go a little further. Don't stop. Don't stop. Come on. Yeah. Come on. Come on. Blessings are coming your way. Go a little further. Don't stop. Don't stop until you get your dream. Don't stop. Get your dream. Until you get your dream. Come on. Don't stop. Don't stop until you get your dream. Don't stop. Get your dream.
I look in the mirror and I like what I see. A strong, beautiful black woman staring back at me. One who's seen a lot of pain and had her share of sorrow, but who never gave up hope for a brighter tomorrow. I've been lied to, cheated on, and stolen from and hit. but it just made me stronger, and I refuse to quit. That's right. And though I've been tempted, I refuse to stoop to their level. Don't go down. I rose above that nonsense and made a liar of the devil. All right now. The devil who said I wasn't good enough, cute enough, or worthy of love, I kicked his butt with divine power from above. Power that says I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me and brought me out of darkness so that I could see that I'm smart, I'm beautiful, I'm a child of the King. Abundant love for me he came to bring. Oh yes, when I look in the mirror, I love what I see. She's looking good. That strong, beautiful black woman, that woman is me.
All right, 90.7 WTCD. Good morning, good people from the Pioneer Valley and all points across the internet and the world. And y'all been repping. You've been repping your city. You've been repping your town. Let me see here who I got check-ins from. I saw Worcester, Massachusetts, Ludlow, Massachusetts, Springfield, Massachusetts is up in here. Atlanta, Georgia is in here. East Windsor, Connecticut is in here. Chicago, Illinois is in the spot. Alexandria, Virginia is in here. The Boogie Down Bronx is up in the spot. I got another ATL. ATL is riding with me on the day. Indianapolis, Indiana is in here. I got Delaware is up in the spot today. Come on, where y'all from? Where y'all coming in from? There's my baby girl Whitney from Chicago by way of Springfield. Good morning, Aunt Marion. I see you, fam. I see y'all up in the spot. Rep your city, rep your town. Where y'all from, Instagram? Where y'all from? YouTube. Got the Bronx on YouTube. We got Virginia on YouTube. I got Maryland on YouTube. All up in here. 413-337-1867. 413-337-1867. Anybody out of the country? I usually got some Londons and some places like that. Maybe time differential. They waking up late or something. But I usually have my overseas folk up in the spot as well. Maryland again, man. Maryland rolling strong with me today. I don't know, y'all. Springfield, is Maryland outdoing y'all? Because y'all don't be repping Springfield. From Springfield, put your city and town in the comments. If you're from the field, let me know y'all rolling with me if you're from the field. All right? All right. If you're from the field, I need to know. 413-337-1867. I got the field over here on Instagram. All right. At least I got the field on IG. Where the rest of y'all at? Come on now. Maryland in the house again. Okay, there we go. The field. There we go. Now y'all waking up. Thank you, Springfield. Appreciate y'all. 413-337-1867. Man, what a wonderful weekend it has been in terms of ministry. It's in church all weekend long. Well worth it. Wonderful service at Spring of Hope Church of God in Christ on yesterday. Y'all really need to go listen to the message. Go on to our Facebook page and pull it up and check it out. And then I was blessed to be with the Fresh Anointing Ministries Church of God in Christ in celebration of their 10th anniversary. Congratulations once again out to Pastor Anthony and First Lady Stephanie Roberson and the entire Fresh Anointing Ministries Church family on 10 years of ministry. Brother Grady, I see you, my brother. I see you. Assistant Supervisor Roberson. I see you, Kathy Swanson, Tracy Hickson. I see you. I don't want to call too many names because I'll get in trouble. Well. The calls are coming in. Let's see what's happening here.
Q call.
No, we're not doing Q calls. 413-337-1867 if you want to chime in on the radio program. I'm not buying anything. Okay? None of that kind of stuff. So listen up. Okay? Democrats have failed black voters. That's my contention. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Bishop. This is Zeta Goban calling. Speaking of what your topic is today, I was speaking to other voters the other day, and they said that the Democratic Party has ruined this country. And I couldn't disagree with him. But being a Democrat, I had to, figure out a way. But I told him I agree. We're making some really bad decisions for all of us, and we need to figure out a way to fix that.
Wow. Here's the thing. Critiquing what you are is productive and healthy. To ignore and pretend that it ain't what it is, that is not helpful to anyone. And that's the problem. No. When liberals, particularly white liberals, who don't experience what black people and brown people experience in this nation, who want to attack you and call you divisive if you are to critique the response of the Democrats toward the concerns of communities of color. So they come back with, well, do you want Trump in office? You want the Republican? No, I don't want the Republicans in office, but I don't want y'all in office neglecting us either. It's like they want to force us to choose the lesser of two evils instead of them stopping being evil. And that's the problem. And we got to hold them accountable, point blank. If we're going to anybody, we're going to give 90+% of our votes. We have a right to criticize them.
That's right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right.
Thank you, Bishop.
Appreciate your call.
Bye.
433-337-1867. I mean, that's on point. Think about it just for a moment, brothers and sisters. Think about it for a moment. George Floyd, Eric Garner, Freddie Gray, Rodney King. We can go back and forward before and after the Black Lives Matter era. It's a baleful list of the names of black people killed or brutalized by police in America. It's long, it's familiar. But so is the list of cities where these and other acts of racial profiling and extrajudicial murder occur. Cities that we've seen engulfed in protest and mayhem. Minneapolis, New York, Baltimore, Los Angeles, you name it. And they all have something else in common. Every one of them, most of them, is controlled by the Democratic Party. Not just recently, not just narrowly, not just tenuously. Like almost all of these cities where racial tensions have occurred are citadels of one-party rule. We got a problem right here in the city I live in Springfield, Massachusetts. It's run by Democrats. We're a police department with 15 officers being indicted or have been indicted, currently being prosecuted. And unfortunately, key prosecution witness just died of COVID, so they're catching a lucky break. But it's run by Democrats. The entire legislative delegation, Democrats. Most people on the school committee, The city council, Democrats. The mayor, Democrats. And so, it's this notion that, the Republicans are racist, yada, yada, yada. But then you have to ask yourself the question, how come all of these cities and towns where police departments are out of control, places like New York and Chicago, and Springfield, Massachusetts, and Minneapolis, Democrats are in charge? Ask the question. I mean, it's the reality. And out of all of the talking points of the right wing, this is the one y'all can't get by. You can't sweep it under the rug. You can't slide by it. You can't pretend it's not a reality. They make a good point. They make a good point. Yes, these cities and towns are run by the people that you put in office and that you continue to vote for. So ask the question, if we got a rogue police department in Springfield, how come the Democrat mayor, Democrat city council, Democrat elected officials ain't doing nothing about it? How come they let it go buck wild? This is the constant failure that we have to deal with. And let me tell you, here are my thoughts on it. Then I'm going to pull some people up on the Twitter space. If you want to talk on the Twitter space, just put in a request. I believe you do the same thing in the Facebook space, Facebook audio space. The rest of y'all can just call in 413-337-1867. Here's my take on it. It might sound controversial, but if you can prove me wrong, prove me wrong. Democrats don't understand systemic racism any better than Republicans do. Let me say that one more again. Okay? Democrats do not understand systemic racism any better than Republicans do. I know they fancy themselves as allies, as resistors, all of that stuff. But when it comes right down to it, do they really understand any better? The Republicans just deny it exists. Democrats do something a little bit different. They don't deny that systemic racism exists. They just don't know what it is, how it works. And what I mean by that, the Democrat Party's vision of racial justice is extremely. Basically, what happened in the wake of the civil rights movement, the Northern liberals pioneered what scholars now call colorblind racism. And most Democrats, most white liberals still ascribe to this day, to this colorblind racism concept. That's when you use racially neutral language that makes extreme racial inequalities that exist in America and make the disparate treatment of black people and brown people and other non-white people in America appear to be the natural outcome of innocent private choices, individuals, or free market forces, rather than intentional public policies like housing covenants, like federal mortgage redlining, like public housing segregation, like school zoning, like so many other things that we can point to. They want to pretend it's all about individual choices, pockets here and there. We even had black Democrats parroting this colorblind racism narrative. Recently, your vice president, Kamala Harris, when she said America is not a racist country. James Clyburn, the majority whip, elaborated on it a little more than Kamala did. He also said America is not a racist country, but we have pockets of racism. We have individuals and individual entities that are practicing racism. Basically, James Clyburn, with all his years of experience, dismissed systemic racism as a problem and parroted the colorblind racism narrative that these are just some individual choices that people are making, and that systemic racism is not a problem. Now, systemic racism was a problem when Trump was in office. All of a sudden now he's the majority whip, and that Democrats control Congress, the House, the Senate, the White House. Oh no, America's not racist anymore. It stopped being racist on January 20th, 2021, when Biden took the oath of office. Come on, man. The history is this, brothers and sisters. Democratic lawmakers promulgated civil rights legislation that challenged Jim Crow laws in the South, but leave de facto segregation in the North completely intact. That's the historical record. And when I say Democrats have failed black voters, I'm not talking about a recent phenomenon. I'm talking about an historic viewpoint. Historic viewpoint. This is not something new. This is ongoing. And because our alternative is the overtly racist Republicans, they got us between a rock and a hard place of selecting them every time. Yeah, they wanted to attack Jim Crow in the South, but left de facto segregation in the North intact. It was Bayard Rustin when he was asked why so many black communities rioted the summer after the Civil Rights Bill passed. He said people have to understand that although the Civil Rights Bill was good and something for which he had worked arduously, there was nothing in it that had any effect whatsoever on three major problems that black folks faced in the North: housing, jobs, and schools. The Civil Rights Bill, because of that failure, caused a deeper frustration in the North. And juxtapose that against the backdrop of today's protest movements against second-class citizenship in Baltimore, in Ferguson, in Oakland, and elsewhere. It's all part of a legacy of the unresolved failure of civil rights legislation and the Democrat Party that black people have been unequivocally supporting for the last 60 years. And unfortunately for black voters, most white politicians and voters assume that the civil rights revolution not only leveled the playing field, but it also tilted in favor of black people. You got liberals who think the playing field is level, and you have conservatives who have the caucasity to think that black people are the ones who are privileged in these yet to be United States of America. Let me bring LaRon Barton up in the Twitter space. LaRon, you're up.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Bill. The thing about the Democrats, and I'm so glad that you called out Harris as well as Clyburn, is that as a black person, you know, I mean, if you study the data, if you look at the history, I mean, systemic racism exists, but you know, I mean, we have our President Biden. I mean, he enacted not one but two crime bills that effectively started mass incarceration. I mean, there's a reason.
And he tried to deny that it was
Absolutely.
the cause of mass incarceration when the data proves unequivocally that from the time the 94 crime bill was passed, within 10 years, mass incarceration of black people doubled.
The data's there, man. I mean.
Oh man, did I lose you, LaRon?
Oh, sorry about that.
There you go.
There's 2.1 million people incarcerated.
Out of that number, 800,000 are black men. Obviously, with those type of numbers, it's definitively systemic. When you have people like Clyburn and Harris who are cowardly to admit it. I mean, this goes back to even our first black president. People who will say things like, "Oh, well, you know, reparations was not needed, and you know, we need to just pull ourselves up by our pictures." But what?
All right, you were talking good, brother. I don't know what's going on with your system there.
Oh, I'm sorry about that, Bishop. No, like what I was saying is like the problem with the Dems is that the Dems take us for granted, right? So the Dems know off the rip that, well, they're not going to overtly vote for Republicans who are just overtly racist, right?
Right.
However, we got to stop listening to people that say vote blue no matter who, right? Because if you notice, Biden hasn't said anything about what was going on with the Haitians in Texas. I mean, and Jen Psaki got up there and she's like, well, you know, we're not going to have the immigration services use horses, as if that was the reason why.
Yeah, like that's the problem. As if they weren't reporting them before we ever saw those images. Then Jen Psaki tried to use Title 42 to justify what was happening, basically saying we're still in a public health crisis, which is the reason. Well, if that's the reason you're deporting Haitians, then why are you resettling 95,000 Afghans and spending $6.1 billion to do it? Be consistent one way or another. You mean to tell me you're afraid Haitians are going to bring COVID here to America, but you're going to you're afraid 15,000 Haitians are going to bring COVID here, but you're not afraid 95,000 Afghans are?
You know, Bishop, this goes back to the anti-blackness of Haitians during the emergence of the AIDS crisis. You know how like it was the 4 H's, right? So it was homosexuals, hemophiliacs, Haitians, and there was another group. So I mean, it's like this hatred of Haitians has been going on for a long time. But I 100% agree with you. Just be consistent. I wish that black folks would stop listening to people like Clyburn, would stop championing Harris, and actually ask for something concrete instead of black faces. And that's all that I have, sir.
All right, I appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Yes. You know, the brother makes perfect sense. We got to ask for more, and we have to expect more, and we got to hold folks accountable when they say crazy stuff like what Clyburn and Harris had to say. You can't soft shoe and walk on eggshells just because they're black. I mean, come on, black people. You know systemic racism is a problem in America because you experience it. Your mom and them experience it. Your kids experience it. Pookie and Ray Ray them experience it. And for them to stand up on their bully pulpits as black people and say America is not a racist country is unconscionable. And here's my problem with y'all. Okay? Here's my problem with y'all. Y'all went in 24 hours before Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, and James Clyburn said America is not racist. Y'all went in on Tim Scott saying America is not a racist country. So if the black face is also a Republican, y'all go in on him, hold him accountable. Y'all, Uncle Tim was trending on all social media. Uncle Tim, a play on Uncle Tom, basically calling Tim Scott a sellout. That was trending all over the place because he said America is not a racist country. How come Uncle Jim wasn't trending the next day when Jim Clyburn said the same thing? How come Auntie Kamala wasn't trending when she said the same thing 24 hours later? Because Black Twitter and all you Democrats went in on Tim Scott and soft-shoed Kamala and James Clyburn for saying the exact same thing. Come on, people. We got to do better than that in holding folk accountable who give us their votes, who we give our votes. You know, this ain't about colored blind. I don't see color. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You see color very well. I mean, one of the major problems for black voters today is that Democrats running for state or national office aspire to win black votes without appearing to be beholden to black voters. Let me say that again because you need to understand this. They want to win black votes, but they want to appear to their white constituents to not be beholden to black voters. That's why you get the about face. That's why once they get in office, they tell us, oh, just wait. Just give us the House and the Senate again in the midterms, and then we'll get to your agenda. They don't want to appear to be, they don't have a problem being beholden to any other community that supports them. They walk into office signing executive orders that benefit the LGBTQ community, transgenders, DACA, hunchbacks, one-legged people, everybody but black folk. They don't want to be perceived by white voters to be beholden to black people. They don't want to be perceived by liberal white voters, by so-called progressive white voters, to owe you Negroes anything. Even though they do. Even though they can't. Listen, here's the reality. Listen, mathematics is simple. Ladies and gentlemen, it is simple math. The majority of registered voters in the divided states of America are white. The majority of white folks vote Republican. Democrats cannot win without black votes. Republicans can win without black votes. Democrats can't. 58% of white women are going to vote Republican no matter what. I don't care who the candidate is. If Lucifer declared himself as a Republican and became the party's nominee, white women would vote for the devil. That's just the reality. 62% of white men are going to vote Republican no matter what. It don't matter. If Jeffrey Dahmer was running on the Republican ticket, white men would vote for Jeffrey Dahmer. That's the reality. So if white folks are going to vote for Republicans, Democrats can't win without black voters. So why do they want to be perceived as not owing y'all anything when they owe you everything? Good morning, Carl.
Good morning, Bishop. How you doing?
I'm good. You?
I just want to say this, something that Biden was saying. When he was talking about Trump, he was saying all this fell under his watch. But look at what happened under his watch. Look at the situation with the migrants. He done made such a mess, right? But what he's trying to do is run. So it's not really about what the Democrats, it's the promises, what this president made to black folks. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I'm angry because you know what? He failed and he had lied to us.
And he said, I owe y'all. Unequivocally.
He sure did.
I owe y'all. I will have your back. Well.
And you know what he's doing now? He's trying to hide. He's trying to really hide. Thank you, Bishop. You have a good day, brother.
All right. Thank you for your call. 1-333-7-1867. If you want to call into the program, if you're in the Twitter space or if you're in the Facebook audio space, send up a request and we will definitely bring some speakers up and let you get on. Let's get Coach Mark up here and see what Coach Mark Anthony, the assistant coach at Barton College, has to say. Coach Mark, you're up.
Bishop.
I'm good. How you?
I'm doing great. Last time I was on, I forgot to mention to you that I'm originally from Boston.
You're originally from where? All right. Say that again, Coach. You're originally from where? Let me get the coach back on. I think the telephone messed that up. Coach, you with me? Yeah, I can hear you. Go right ahead.
Okay, good. I was just thinking about, the subject that you were speaking on today, and it's more so like the Democratic Party has been pimping our votes. They go on the media and they say, look, we care about these things that concern black people. We care about, what's happening in the communities. We care about black economics, housing, jobs, the prison system, the injustice system. We care about all of these things, and it's like they run a campaign during the time that our votes are at stake. Mm-hmm. They run such a great campaign. They put millions of dollars into social media campaigns, television campaigns. We get flooded with
Mm-hmm.
But then once they get in office,
they get amnesia.
There's a celebration, and then they drop us off back at our home and say, "Okay, you got because we got more important things that we need to deal with now."
Right? How come we always have to wait? How come we're the ones who they say now put us in office and we'll give you the hookup, and once they get in office they say, oh well, yeah, y'all gotta wait because we gotta take care of the LGBTs and we gotta take care of the transgenders and we gotta take care of the hunchbacks and we gotta take care of DACA and we gotta take care of everybody else, and y'all just sit back and cut and wait for us.
You know, I think after this, much as we went through during Trump and before Trump, I mean, we went through backlash socially. We went through the in all aspects, we went through the backlash of when Obama was in office.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was absolutely a war against us. We were being shot down in the street. I mean, every week. I mean, it was crazy. So then when Trump came in, it was just blatant. It was in our face. Now Biden's in office, and now we're experiencing some of the same things. We started to experience some of the same things that we experienced with Obama. And I think what we need to do, we need to sit back as a group, and we need to get as many people on the same page as we can, because we know that we're not going to get everybody on the same page. But we need to get as many conscious people on the same page and say, okay, look, we're not going to vote for you if you're not going to do anything that we need for you to do that has teeth in it.
Right.
You know, we don't want all bark and no bite. We want bite. We need somebody to fight for the Trump or some of this injustice that we're experiencing today. And so, first thing we need to do, we need to organize our money. We're the richest black folk on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So we have an economic responsibility to ourselves to be able to channel our monies towards what candidates we need. But we also need to hold our votes. If they don't do anything for it, if we can't get it in writing, if we can't get it, if they don't do anything for us, then we don't need to vote for them, no matter what party they're part of. Because it's time out for us being pimped. We see what's happening.
Yeah.
And we're being laid down the road to 2024.
Mm-hmm.
And what are they going to be able to say they've done for us that has teeth?
Absolutely. I mean, nothing tangible.
Nothing at all.
Wow. Appreciate you, Coach.
Appreciate you too, man. Bless you.
All right. 413-337-1867. The coach said they're pimping us. I can't disagree. The Talso, I see you on Instagram, who commented, this is the Democrats' MO. When do we stop waiting? This is their modus operandi. This is what they always do. I listen, I can't disagree with you. I can't. I wish I could disagree, but I can't disagree because you're speaking facts. You know, speaking facts. Keep our economics within our own. We've got to do that as well. You know, so we're in a pickle, y'all. We're in a pickle. You know, and the more they fail us, the stronger the voices that say, you know what, vote down ballot, vote in your local races where quality of life issues affect you the most, and walk away from the Democrats on the national party stage. Now, I know that has some dire implications because, you know, as we can see, we've got a Supreme Court that is hostile towards civil rights. They have no problem with overturning legislation, even before Trump's nominee got in the mix. During Obama's administration, the Supreme Court basically gutted the Civil Rights Act of 1965. We have an even more conservative Supreme Court now than we had then. So we don't know what's going to be on the chopping block coming up. So I know that walking away on the national platform has some very serious implications. But at the same time, do we just continue to support a party that continues to ignore our concerns, put us on the back burner, who wants to pretend to white voters that they're not beholden to us? I mean, what do you do? What do you do? And see, here's the problem. People are looking at black people like, what y'all gonna do? Y'all not gonna support the Republicans, are you? What y'all gonna do? Y'all have to do this. But they're not looking at the Democrats and saying, hey, when the hell are y'all going to do right by the black people who put you in office? That's who you ought to be looking at. You shouldn't be looking at black voters trying to make them feel guilty for having the nerve to want to hold Democrats accountable for speaking to their concerns when we put them in office. No, you ought to be looking at the Democrats and when y'all gonna treat black people right for a change. Oh, my goodness. Get the career politicians out. Clean house. Clean house. Listen, if you're in the 413 and you're looking for a place to worship, check us out at the Spring of Hope Church of God in Christ. We're at 35 Alden Street, the brick church right there at Six Corners, 11 o'clock a.m. every Sunday morning. We're live in the sanctuary, and also we're streaming for those of you who are not in the 413. But if you're in the 413, come on by, check us out at Spring of Hope. I've got to transition off of WTCC. My show on WTCC ends at 10 o'clock, and then at 11 o'clock we start Justice and Flow in just 3 minutes. So those of you who are on the social media space, stick with us. First Lady is going to be coming up. I don't know what she's going to talk about today. I'm going to just roll with it, you know. I just flow. That's how it goes. I see you in the Twitter space. I got a couple requests up in the Twitter space. We're going to get you on. I see you, Dr. Gina Ross. I see you all in the Facebook audio space. Good morning to you. I'm new to the Facebook audio space, but it's good to see those of you who are there. All right. Stay with us. We're going to be right back. To those of you who are listening, who are with me on WTCC, check us out at Spring of Hope. And also remember that the Greater Springfield NAACP meets every fourth Tuesday. And we will be meeting on the Zoom platform in the virtual space. I want to thank you who supported our recent Freedom Fund with Dr. Jamal Bryant. Thank you so much for your support, to all our corporate sponsors and everyone else. Listen, those of you who are rolling with me in my social media spaces, don't go nowhere. We'll be right back. Those of you on WTCC and the Pioneer, until the next time I talk to you and you talk to me, always remember, God loves you, and so do I. Don't y'all go nowhere. All right, there we go. In the house, Justice and Flow. That was a little jingle that my son created, and he
You
wanted me
gotta
to.
say which son. You gotta say which son.
My youngest, my baby boy, my son Micah, um, and so he sent it to me before he went to school today,
Yeah.
and I want to let him know that his music got played. Um, on the show. So he's creating some theme music for us.
Yeah. Yeah. He did a good job. That was his first, that was his first song that he created or first song that he produced. And as a matter of fact, I asked him the other day, I was like, well, you're in high school now, you're in ninth grade. Are you thinking about careers? Are you thinking about, what you want to do when you go to college? And he very quickly said, what do you think?
What did he say?
I want to go to school. I want to be a production engineer. I want to learn how to produce music. And so I thought that was great. So he's really into this thing now. So, we're just going to support him.
In
And
his, of course, he's inspired by his big brother.
he
Um,
is. Good
his big brother
morning.
Talbert, who is a recording artist and who does music, and he would sneak into the basement at his brother's house and mess with his computer and stuff. And I had to give him a computer so he could put the software on there and do it himself. And he's just been going to town ever since. He's a drummer at our church, as well as his big brother. So he's kind of following his big brother's footsteps in various ways.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's gonna do music for us. Yeah.
So I know how that is. I think me and you, we fall in the same line or order, in our siblingship, and I think we know how that is for our younger siblings to kind of look up to us. I don't know if your brothers look up to you though. Do they look up to you?
Anyway.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Justice and Flow After Show. We're gonna put some content. We're planning on putting some lyrics, to that music that our son has produced for us, and we're really proud of him. We're really proud of all of our kids. We're really proud of all of our kids. I know you're already kind of engrossed in the topic, but since you brought up the children and since we're thinking about the boys, we can't help also but to think about what's going on at UMass Amherst. I don't know if it's happening at other campuses, but
Yeah.
I, as a mom, and I know as a dad that we're really concerned about that email that was sent to all the identified Black students, and I think administrators, right? Am I right when I say that? But Black people,
But student groups as well.
yeah,
Um, but it's it's crazy um, that we pay thousands of dollars for our kids to go to school, not for them to be subjected to the small-mindedness of some individuals or groups that target them simply because they're Black. And so we want the university to let us know what they plan on doing. In this, I know they released a statement. I know it's hit national outlets. I saw it on Newsweek and some others. But I want to know what UMass is going to do. And so that's the conversation that I plan on having with some other civil rights activists and groups in the area, because I know folks have been having conversations nationally because it's now a national story, but we're here in the valley,
yeah.
in Massachusetts. It's up the street. It's a half hour up the street from us. Our son is a student there, and so I want answers.
Right. Well, more importantly, not only is he a student there, of course, it's thousands of Black students at UMass. We're not talking about 10 Black people. We're talking about thousands. UMass is Amherst, just in case y'all don't know, it's a flagship institution, and it has like 20,000 students.
Over 20,000. Yeah.
Over 20,000 students that live there. It's like a small town. It's akin to a small town. As a matter of fact, some of the small rural towns that I've been through and know of, UMass is larger than. So we're talking about a lot of people. We're talking about a huge community of students, and so it's not just about children or students and Black folks being subjected to this kind of awful assault on their person, because we can't stop ignorance. We know that people are going to behave badly, but as an institution of higher learning, how you respond to incidents like this is important to me as a mom. And so it was suggested to me by some of my friends who are in higher education, and I was a little bit taken aback by this, but they said to just ignore it. And it's like, how do you ignore something like that was sent to your kid? So it's like, I can't ignore it. It won't be ignored, but at the same time, it won't be celebrated either. I just want accountability, and how the institution that we're paying, thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, for our son to go and receive a quality education, how they respond to traumatizing events like this is really, really important to us, because we are essentially supporting that institution. So we want to know how they respond.
It's easy for people to say, just forget about it when their kid don't go there. when it doesn't affect their family, it's easy to just be kind of right and dismissive about the situation.
Right. Well, they also attended UMass, so they have a understanding of UMass. They mentioned that
I attend
when they were students at UMass, that they kind of went through similar events, and I actually
many of us did.
acknowledge that. But
Many of us did. I went to UMass in the 1980s during the height of apartheid. I was part of the student group that forced the university to divest out of South Africa and stop supporting an apartheid regime. I led protests on campus. Student activist. When I pledged fraternity, they called me Little Brother Farrakhan because they thought I was radical. During my time at UMass, the university, when they would take your student ID picture, if you were Black or Latino, they would send that photo and your demographic information to the Amherst Police Department so they could keep track on all of the N-words that were in town. This kind of racism that we dealt with at UMass back then. So yeah, I went there too, and I experienced. The cops used to follow me through town. I'd get to Amherst, they'd follow me all the way into the center of town, pull me over for no reason. I dealt with I've been at gunpoint at UMass, outside of the student union ballroom, outside with some of my friends at a party, and a cop comes saying, "Get your hands up or you'll die in the night." So I've been there, and there's no way in the world that I would just tell my son, "Oh, just ignore this." No way in the world to tell him to ignore this.
And I can't ignore it. Well, if I was to be completely transparent and honest, the first year that our son started at UMass, and the only reason why he ended up at UMass was kind of a second choice because it was in close vicinity to us, his family and everything. But he actually wanted to go to Howard. Things didn't work out, so he wanted to go to a HBCU. And I don't think, at least I hope not, I don't think he would have been dealing with these same kinds of problems had he went to a HBCU. So, that would have been great for us. That would have been great for us. But what I wanted to say, babe, before you respond, was that in his freshman year, he had expressed concern about the racism on campus. So it was out the gate, so this is nothing new to him and the Black students. The fact of the matter is he was there his first semester, and he told me, "Mommy, there's a lot of racism on campus." And I was like, "What?" And so he started to express it, and I was like, wow, it sounds like nothing has changed from when your dad was here.
Yeah, there are a lot of folks who have been saying in the wake of this, send your kids to an HBCU. Don't send to a PWI. And that's well and good. I mean, like you said, our son got accepted into 13 different colleges that he applied to. And Howard was his number one choice, and UMass was second. Now herein lies the concern when it comes to HBCUs. He would have loved to have been at Howard. We would have loved for him to be there. But from a practical standpoint, from a family standpoint, the reality was this. By the time you chalked up financial aid, scholarships, and grants, and all of that, and you came to the out-of-pocket family expense, there was a difference between me having to pay out-of-pocket $26,000 a year for him to go to Howard, or paying $10,000 to $12,000 a year for him to go to UMass. And so from a practical standpoint, most Black families can't afford to shell out $26,000 to $30,000 out of pocket every year for their child's education. So they sometimes have to make the choice to go with the second choice, to go to a state school or something like that. Um, but here's the bottom line. Our dollars spend just like white students' dollars spend. Our students deserve the same um, level of dignity and respect on campus as every other student. And we cannot and should not stand for anything less than that. Um, I mean, that's what it is. That's where he is. He's been there for 4 years. He's in his fourth year now. He's a 5-year major. He's in a 5-year architecture major. He's an honor roll student, and I'll be doggone if my son is going to be subjected to this racist foolery. I'll turn that campus out. Bottom line.
All of us will. The whole Team Swan will. All of us will. All of us will. And, we ain't going to forget about his family down in Texas. If they got to fly up and they got to do whatever it is, or drive up, or whatever, and do what they got to do, no, that absolutely will not be ignored. So we are anticipating a response from the UMass administrators. And so I'm just hoping that they respond in a just and righteous way, so that people like us, parents like us, concerned parents like us, and friends and family members can feel a little bit more comfortable with what the school plans to do to address that. So
we had an issue like this several years. I think it was 2017 at Westfield State. Bomb threats.
Well, one of the members of my church at the time was closely involved in that situation.
She was a student on that campus. I believe Sally Govan's daughter was one. Her children was a student as well. So I don't know what it is. I'm assuming these are white kids. They say, of course, they say wait for the investigation. It could be whatever it is. Bottom line is they shouldn't do it.
But you making a good segue to your topic earlier today, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, babe. It's a little bit of a delay with the communication here, so I didn't mean to interrupt you. I didn't know if you had finished your statement or not. If you hadn't, I'm sorry. But you're making a great segue to your topic earlier today about the Democratic Party and their contradictions, particularly to us and Black folks. I've been saying because, as you know, I've been in Massachusetts for 34 years now. Born and raised in Texas. Everybody knows that Texas is a red state, and that Texas is probably classified as one of the most racist states in the U.S. Right? So we know that. It's a given. Lots of Black folks out there, lots of us who, came from there, lots of us who live there, still today. And making a way. However, I thought that when I moved to Massachusetts, that, with it being a blue state, classified as a blue state, Democratic state, I, was expecting like a huge drastic difference in the way that lifestyle and quality of life, politics, all of those things were. And I'm finding out some 30-something years later, almost 35 years later, I'm finding out that blue states are not as progressive as you would, as you would think. It's racism. The racism is more covert. The racism is more sophisticated, maybe. Where it's blatant and it's like ignorant. It's real ignorant in some southern states. And I'm sorry if I'm I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry if I'm offending anybody. But so the racism is just ignorant, it's blatant, it's just flagrant, it's just whatever. And up here it can be a little bit more subtle, it can be a little bit more educated, intelligent, maybe, or at least sound like that. It can be a little bit more covert. However, racism is racism, so there's no difference. It's just like sin is sin. So racism is racism.
One of the points I brought up in the first hour was part of the failure of Democrats to black voters was this: civil rights legislation dealt with and targeted Jim Crow racism in the South, but it left de facto racism and discrimination completely intact in the North.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that Malcolm said, always repeat this all of the time, he said, y'all always talking about the South. He said, stop talking about the South. When it comes to racism in America, as long as you're south of the Canadian border, you're South. And that's the reality. I mean, I'm born and raised in Massachusetts. What the South end of Boston is one of the most racist enclaves in the United States for years. For years. Not much different from the hillbillies, in the South. And folks think that we're cosmopolitan and progressive and all of that up here. We have experienced racism here, just like folk in the South. So America is America. I got somebody to go live on the Gram, which is the first. I'm in the Twitter space and stuff like that, but let's see what happens here. But yeah, you're right. Racism is racism. It doesn't matter what geographical part of the nation that you're in.
Or the way that you do it, or the way that you do it, or deliver it. Racism is racism. Has the same impact and it has the same trauma attached to it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you want to bring somebody up because I wanted to get back to that whole concept of right to critique. Right to critique. I wanted to get back to that.
Yeah, I tried. I'm not that good on doing it on the Gram, so I guess it didn't come up.
Okay. Do you have any other callers out there waiting in the queue?
Let me see. Anybody in the queue on? I don't see anybody in the Twitter space with a request in right now. They're here, but no requests are up.
Okay.
If you want to get on the conversation, shoot me a request in the Twitter space, on the Facebook audio space, or on the Gram, and we'll get you up and have a conversation with you. Go right ahead.
Okay, so I wanted to get back to that point. So you were talking about the Democratic Party's contradictions, particularly to us, Black people. It's so much to unpack, but let me hone in on that right to critique. That concept, in my opinion, is vitally necessary to any healthy relationship. This is why diversity, equity, inclusion, and representation is also needed in order to, create these opportunities of progress, right? So the fact that they courted our vote made us feel as though we should continue to sacrifice and fight suppression or voter suppression and the assault on our vote and the assault on our humanity, because we do realize that the voter suppression is much bigger than just voting. It's much bigger than just voting. It's about oppressing us as a people, as a community, but snuffing us out completely, like snuffing us out, or at least attempting some type of a genocide, if you will. So but our willingness to make those sacrifices in spite of, you know, that fight was to save democracy. It was not to save the Democratic Party. It was to save or to preserve, in my opinion, democracy. I know as a Black woman, I'm not trying to save no party. I'm trying to save, first of all, our humanity. I'm trying to preserve what I need to do to preserve our humanity. But the sacrifice that was made was for democracy. It was not for a Democratic Party.
Let me push you on that then. It can be credibly argued that American democracy has not worked to the benefit of Black people.
Right.
So then, therefore, why would it be incumbent upon Black folks to save a failing democracy that has not benefited us simply because other white folks want to change it?
No, I because we don't see it that way. That's not the perspective that we have. The perspective that we have is that democracy is a righteous concept. Unfortunately, we live in a racist country that is refusing to be or uphold, you know, the standards of democracy or having a democracy. You know, because they rather, you know, push people that look like us down, or they prefer to keep a slave, you know, mentality or process in place, or uphold white supremacy, you know, if you will, instead of democracy. So, I mean, the fact of the matter is, we do feel like it's the right thing to do. Is to have a legit democracy. Unfortunately, we're being fought on every end, you know, possible to uphold a true democracy. So that's the perspective that I feel like, you know, we have as Black women. So, you know, the fact of the matter is, we just don't, you know, like we said, we've defaulted to what's the best case scenario right now. What's the best?
The lesser of two evils is what we always have to default to, unfortunately.
Yeah, right. You know.
We've got a caller. Good morning, caller. You're on there.
Go ahead.
Hello, how you doing? How you doing, Bishop Swan?
I'm good. You?
Mississippi. I'm doing good.
I was about to bring up Mississippi too.
I know, but how you doing, Swan?
I'm good.
But you sound so much. You sound so much like you from the Mississippi Delta. It don't make no sense.
Well, you know, my people are from the Mississippi Delta. My father.
Yeah, I heard you.
My father was born in Belzoni, and my grandmother and all those come from Yazoo County, Mississippi. And all of my life, people have told me I sound like I'm from the South, even though I was born and raised in New England. But I've been around Mississippi folks my whole life.
I mean, you listen. Just, I ain't talking about so much in the tone as what you said. If I didn't know no better, I would say you born straight out the Delta. I mean, you kill the spirit of the people from the Delta.
Yes,
but I want to say this though. I think the time for Black folks to become a political bloc for themselves, lead a Republican plantation, the Democratic plantation. Because no white man political will really made to set you, get you free, get you justice.
Mm-hmm.
If we would want to do anything, I think we could come together. If we want to come together as a political bloc and represent our own interests and get off these political parties.
Right. Absolutely. Appreciate your call.
I think we would get more respect out of the system if we did that, instead of just joining on as a Republican and Democrat, because we get messed over by them all the time. Matter of fact, where I live at, we had a white Republican, a white Democratic mayor mayor, and when the brother got shot down, he was trying to protect the police.
We got a Democrat mayor who protects the police all the time.
Yeah. So we done been messed up about both parties, and I don't, like I said, until we come an independent block of people, but with our own political thoughts and political views, and get off the Republican and Democratic plantation, I don't think we'll get too much justice. And I'm gonna hang up and listen to Bishop Swan.
No. Mississippi, stay right there, because I was about to bring up something. You called right on time, because I was about to bring up my Shiro. I was about to bring up Fannie Lou Hamer, from Mississippi, did her activism, certainly, started her career activism in Mississippi. And Fannie Lou Hamer is one of those, and I don't know if anybody else, tried to do what she tried to do, but she tried to start the Freedom Democratic Party back in the 60s. She tried to start the Freedom Democratic Party for Black folks, for the progression of Black folks politically back in the 60s. And I do believe that she probably would have been more successful with that plan had she, her health did not basically succumb her. But yeah, that was started down in Mississippi. She's my Shiro. I call myself a Fannie Lou Hamer, a kind of Black woman all the time. So in my heart, I may not have any biological roots in Mississippi, but I definitely have spiritual roots in Mississippi because of people like Fannie Lou Hamer. So you called in at the right time, because I wanted to bring that up, how she prophetically was moving years ago, telling us that we needed to start our own party. And when she went to address some issues as a Black woman for Black people to Congress, you know what they called her? They called her an uneducated, ignorant nigger. That's what they called her. Out loud. They called her uneducated, ignorant, and of course, the N-word. And so, but back in the 60s, she was moving and creating a new Black party. And of course, with her death, that was dismantled. But maybe we need to go back and pick up the Freedom Democratic Party, babe.
Well, the argument that Mississippi makes, has consistently been made over and over again, that we ought to step away from both of the major political parties, take our block of votes, create a third party, and vote our own best interests.
Right.
And then maybe they will take us seriously, because obviously they're not doing it right now.
Yeah. Well, we definitely need to, even while we're trying to decide what to do with national politics, we definitely need to spend a lot of time and more energy, I say, more energy on what's going on at home. Charity begins at home and then it spreads abroad. I think we spend too much time focused on the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and we're neglecting what's going on right here at home with our city elections, with our state elections, and so on and so forth. I think we can make a better difference, or a quicker difference in progress for our community if we start at the bottom as opposed to from the top down to the bottom, because we already know that the top, they basically caught us, they caught us for our vote, made us feel as though we should continue to sacrifice and fight suppression and the assault on our vote. Like I said, not for the party, but we did it for the democracy. But the world knows, but instead the party we have chosen to support is akin to what I say as a therapist, a domestic violent, relationship, or an abusive relationship, or it's like, being in a committed relationship with an infidel, or being in a committed relationship with a rapist. it's like sleeping with the enemy, pretending to be one way to manipulate us and deceive us to have their way. But when they're finished with us, they throw us away. So that's what's happening. It's a slave.
Well, what the Democrats are basically saying, and here's the irony for me is this: they can't win without our votes. Let me say that again, brothers and sisters. Be emphatically clear. They cannot win without black votes. 62% of white men, 58% of white women are going to vote Republican no matter what. They cannot win without black vote. Yet, even though the Republicans are trying to suppress the black votes that they need to win, instead of them fighting hard as hell to overcome that voter suppression, their strategy is to tell black people, just vote harder. You know, just be more resilient. You know, vote harder. Out organize the suppression. You know, they don't have a plan to restore the Voting Rights Act. They don't have a plan to target these Republicans that are in office, get them out of office, and flip some of this crazy legislation. And all of these voter suppression laws are able to be put in place because there is no pre-clearance anymore, because they gutted the Voting Rights Act. So places that have historically suppressed black votes, places like Georgia and Mississippi and Louisiana and other places, can put in the most draconian, the most ridiculous voter suppression laws. You can't give water to 90-year-old people standing in line for 3 hours. You know, crazy stuff like that. They can put it in place because there is no enforcement of the Voting Rights Act. And remember now, they just got all three branches of government now. But remember when Trump first got in office in 2016, they begged us to give them back the House in 2018, and black people did that. They gave them back the House in 2018, and then they gave them the House and the Senate in 2020. And they have not come up with a plan to restore the Voting Rights Act yet. And one of the things they can do, they can get rid of the filibuster, but they're not willing to do that. Oh no, if we get rid of the filibuster, then the Republicans will use that to their advantage when they get in office. So we're not going to do that, even if that means we can't pass the Voting Rights Act. Even if that means we can't pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, we'll leave the filibuster in place. So these are white folks who are saying, basically, these issues that you black people are facing are not important enough for us to do everything that's in our power to pass them. So they said, well, we tried. We gave Asians a $5 billion anti-Asian hate law, but we can't give y'all police reform. We can't give y'all Voting Rights Act because it's not in our best interest if the Republicans get in power and there's no filibuster, and we can't then filibuster. So since it's not in our best interest, in the interest of white liberals, the hell with it. We tried. Oh well. That's their mentality with us.
Well, not only is that their mentality, it's too many of us who coddle with them. And what I mean by that is, you just reminded me of when John Lewis passed away. And remember, they was the live streaming the funeral on TV, and all of these big name politicians showed up at the funeral. A lot of them were slated to speak at the funeral, and oh wow, the black community was like so impressed. Oh, Clinton did this, Pelosi did this and said this, and or whatever, and all the, we was just praising them and thanking them for being at the funeral. And here we are several months later, after, doing everything that we did in Georgia, where he was funeralized and where he passed away. No, actually, I think they brought him home. But nevertheless, and now here we are 7-8 months later, or whatever, and they can't even pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. They can't even pass that.
Not without getting a filibuster.
All of this talk about how righteous he was and this, that, and the other, and blah, 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 and da, da, da. But wait a minute, babe. We did what we needed to do, to give them control of both the House and the Senate, or whatever. So at this point, they are allowing, a conflict and confusion instead of shutting stuff down. You know as well as I do that the Republicans was flagrant about shutting stuff down and doing stuff that they wanted to do that wasn't even constitutional.
Democrats are punks. I mean, that's just the reality.
Republicans to us. Comes to us.
Republicans are gangsters. Democrats are punks. Republicans get in and they're like, you know what? We don't care what the costs are. We don't care. We're going to do.
Yeah. I'm not gonna call them punks, but what I'm gonna call them are racists that are Democrats. Racists that are Democrats. That's just the bottom line. Like you said, and like you alluded to in the earlier show. And we need to critique that. We need to call that out. And we need to call some things in, and like my friend Tanisha will say, some people in, right? You don't leave. The only people you leave in the field, according to your message yesterday, in my humble opinion, are the crows. You leave the crows in the field, but you don't walk by another scarecrow. You tell the scarecrow to come down the pole. I came down the pole, you come down the pole, right? So in other words, I don't like leaving black folk, in this white supremacist mentality so that they can perpetuate the system for racist white folks or whatever the case may be. But we need to call out, those racist Democrats because that is the party that we tend to support. I'm talking about black women that we tend to vote in and support the most. But we do need to call out their racism. We do need to call out their contradictions. And we definitely need to call out, their unrighteousness and unjust behavior toward black people as a whole.
But then they're going to call you divisive.
Well,
because then it's like, this is counterproductive. What is it? Do you want Trump to win? That's the scare tactic. See, what kills me about Democrats is they condemned Republicans using scare tactics, on their constituents. That if you don't vote for us, you're going to get all these black people moving into the suburbs. You're going to get that. And they said they're using these scare tactics. But Democrats do the same thing. They basically are telling black folk, if y'all don't vote for us, you're going to get these racists back in power. And they're going to do this and they're going to do that to you.
Racist in power.
They're not appealing to us based upon, here is our agenda to address your concerns of reparations, of police reform, of livable wages.
A black agenda. Let's just say it. A black agenda.
We're not going to give you that. We're going to scare you into believing how bad it's going to be if the Republicans are in power to force you to vote for us. Whatchamacallit, I can't remember the young lady's name, but she was one of the higher up black women in Bernie Sanders' campaign. She was on film saying she got so tired of people asking what their black agenda was that she almost just printed out their campaign's agenda as it was and put black agenda on top just to satisfy black people who were asking for a black agenda, which said to me they were not going to actually propagate a black agenda. They wanted to just placate black people, and that's what Democrats are doing all the time.
It ain't no wanted to just placate black people. They've been placating us for decades now. I mean, this has been going on forever, since the beginning of political parties. So that's nothing new. It's horrible and it's horrific, but like I said, and like you said, we have to, since this is the party that we tend to vote in the most, although we may have an independent mentality, may not be married to a particular party, but we have an independent mentality. We tend to vote Democrat, most of the time, because not voting is not an option for us. Not voting is not an option for us. But with that being said, we do have the right for the party that we support the most. We have the absolute right to critique it the most. And so when our humanity is being overlooked and dismissed and we are being mistreated as a whole, we have the absolute right to advocate for ourselves.
Black people may not be married to the Democrat Party. I would agree with you there, but black folks certainly are the side piece of the Democrat Party, because that's how they treat us.
Well, I agree with that, but what I called it though, we not even a side piece, because the side piece get treated better than we get treated. I said we're in a domestic violent relationship. We are in a domestic violent relationship.
They get in office and they say, here LGBTQ community, here transgender community, here DACA immigrants, here this one, here that one. Black folk, we're going to get to you when we get to you. Just relax. They treat us like the side piece.
Well,
you when I got some time, okay? Don't be calling us, don't be calling us, harassing us for some time. We'll get to you when we get to you.
It's so true. But you also got to remember, babe, you also got to remember that that's not just them. That's not just them. It's these other groups that will ride on the backs of black folks' pain and trauma and injustice here in this country. They will get to the door and they, like I said, they'll ride on our skirt tail. They'll ride on our backs, to get to that door. And they'll jump ahead of us and not look back. So, we got to remember that they play a small role in some of that too. We said that last.
Have got to get tired of being the side piece. I mean, they got to get tired of, on Thanksgiving, the LGBTQs and everybody else gets invited to the Thanksgiving dinner and introduced to the family and all that.
Side pieces. I think all those other groups are the side pieces.
And they'll get to you, the day after Thanksgiving. They don't hang out with us, with black folk on Valentine's Day. They hang out with white liberals on Valentine's Day, and they send us a card in the mail, and they get to us, after the day is over or something like that. When are we going to demand better from a party we give 90+% of our votes to?
Well, I'll give you an example. And Clifford Payne said this: they don't march with us either. I somewhat disagree, and let me tell you why I say I disagree a little bit, Clifford. Because they do march with us. Think about it. Look how many white folks came out and went out and protested and this, that, and the other. And what did we do? We glorified it. We was like, oh, they see our humanity now. When they saw how George Floyd was killed and how he was snuffed out and how he was murdered in plain sight and da-da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, first of all, The thing is, we have been telling you. So we have been telling you for decades that was happening. Or whatever. We actually been telling you that for centuries. Going back to lynching and before lynching. And so on and so forth. So our word wasn't good enough. So you had to see it for yourself. So they started marching and protesting with us. But again, when it comes down to policy change, we see nothing. We get nothing but filibuster debate.
We got Juneteenth. We got Juneteenth, and we got Hip Hop Recognition Month. Bam! We didn't get no $5 billion anti-black hate law, but we got Juneteenth.
We don't have no hate law. We don't have no policing reform. We don't have any. We can't even get the anti-lynching bill. We can't even get that signed. So I mean, technically,
you got to think of how bad is it? How bad is it when Congress won't pass a bill that makes lynching black people a hate crime?
Right. I mean, isn't that a no-brainer? But we're divisive. But we're complaining. But every once in a while I watch this show. It's old now. What would you do? And so they did this experiment with this white guy who had on a jacket with a big Confederate flag on the back and Confederate flag on the sleeves, and he was from the South. I think he was from Mississippi, but he was in Brooklyn. So they wanted to see, what kind of reaction he would get walking around, with that jacket on. And of course, it was many black people who was like, "Sir, you need to take that jacket off. It's offensive to me." But what was interesting was he said, "Oh, well, this is just a display of my heritage, being a Southerner and da 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 da." So he wasn't like, a mean guy wearing a Confederate flag on his back. He was just like, "Well, don't I have the right, to express my heritage, or whatever, without it offending you?" And he was like, "But it's a lot of pain." The black man was like, "It's a lot of pain associated with that, seeing that flag, for me." Now, the problem became other white folks, other white folks stepping in and giving their opinion about it. Most white folks who consider themselves non-racist said, "Sir," told the black guy, "you just need to get over it. You just need to get over it. He's just wearing that." He said it. He's just wearing that because that's his heritage. Don't he have the right, to express his heritage, and so that's also akin to, I believe, what's happening. It's subtleties of what's happening, as far as these political parties are concerned.
My question to we're almost out of time, but my question to Republicans is this: they always come at me because I went so hard against Trump and the conservatives for the last 4 years. They make this assumption that I'm a Democrat when I'm actually an independent voter. I'm not subscribed to either political party. So they assume I'm a Democrat. So they always come at me with, "Democrats started the KKK," and I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. I said, white folks started the KKK. That's
what I
white
care
folks
about.
started the KKK. But my question to them always is this: now, if your mama's a clown, nothing, okay, on Instagram. If Democrats started the KKK, and they were the Confederacy, and they were the ones who fought to keep slavery, how come whenever we talk about taking down Confederate flags, and every time we talk about getting rid of Confederate monuments, it's you Republicans who claim that type of racism belong to the Democrats that are saying that's our heritage. We want to preserve that. Answer that question. If they are the Confederates, why is it y'all heritage? Y'all anyway. Racism is white folks' heritage. Period. Your last caller of the day. Good morning.
Hello, Bishop. How you doing?
I'm good.
Just want to say this. I heard y'all was talking about the George Floyd and how they could not pass lynching bill, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I was looking down in Florida, how they did the Haitian. We as black people, we should not be shocked. So they've been doing this to us for years. So when I hear black people say, I'm shocked, what to be shocked about? It's real. This was been going on.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're right about that. Straight to the point. I'm not shocked though. Just so you know, I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked. I'm disappointed, but I'm not shocked. I'm disappointed in the Democratic Party because, as I've stated, in a moment of transparency, I tend to vote Democrat. I tend to vote Democrat. And so with that being said, I'm very disappointed that the Democratic Party is not more aggressive about instituting black policies and black items in the political arena. And I'm making no apologies about black. I'm making no apologies for that because we're the only people in this country that has had the experience that we have had.
That's right. Okay, y'all have a blessed day. We down in Georgia. We be listening to you. Have a great day.
All right, Georgia. Georgia. I can't sing it.
Georgia is a state. Somebody mentioned Stacey Abrams. They tried to say they called her Abraham, but it's Abrams. Somebody mentioned Stacey Abrams a little bit earlier in the comments, and you're absolutely right. She did a phenomenal job turning that state around, and helping the national politicians, win those seats and take control of both the House, Senate, as well as the presidency and the vice presidency.
All right, party remarks. Final say.
I just wanted to say this. Hey, babe, listen. The messages on yesterday were life-changing. Were literally life-changing messages, and I'm just so glad that I've never given up on the Black church. I'm just so glad that even through our peaks and valleys and our hills and and low times, or whatever, good times and bad times, and even in different times, that I never given up on the Black church. And I tell you, the Black church is saving millions of lives and bringing more people into not only spiritual consciousness, but into certainly Black consciousness and awareness, and it's very powerful. And so I just want you to know, as your wife, I'm praying for you because God is definitely using you to certainly perpetuate and perpetuate that Black consciousness of Black folks of faith, and that also know how important it is for us to also seek social justice and to be active in our involvement of seeking justice, for our people. So yesterday's message were life-changing. I do recommend, and y'all know I don't never do this, But I do recommend that if you have never listened to a message from Bishop before, that you get yesterday's messages, both the morning message and the afternoon message at Fresh Anointing Church of God in Christ. So they were life-changing messages, and I'm definitely a benefactor of it. So I'm continuing to pray for you. Everybody, thank you for staying with us. I know y'all probably enjoy the first show a little bit better, spoken word a little bit better, but thank you for staying with us for the after show. Pray for me as I continue to try to bring new segments and kind of refresh the show a little bit, and continue our conversation on Black awareness, Black consciousness, and certainly Black power.
All right, babe. Thank you so much. Appreciate your prayers and your support as always. I need some breakfast though, and something else, in the kitchen. But anyway, next week, same bad station. Spoken word at 9 o'clock a.m. Justice and Flow at 10 o'clock a.m. Don't y'all go nowhere. Y'all tell everybody that we be on the air. So set that aside, put a pin in it, and be with us on next week. All right, we out. I'm gonna play.
Right.
I'm gonna go out on this music. Deuces.
Oh yeah, good.
He calls this one
victory. This victory.
No, he says he calls it 80s vibe. So we gonna 80s? Let him name.
Oh, okay.
80s vibe. That's his music.
For us, though, he did it for us because I asked him something for our show.
He get to name it. We out. Deuces.